There's no political parties right now. They're patriots and they're traitors. They're people who care about the truth and people who don't. Hello, my name is Todd Shannon. I'm a data scientist, social commentator, and getter of buckets. And this is the Who Cares What Todd Thinks vlog. What are we talking about today? The election, my friends. The election, which I'm sure has caused you no stress whatsoever, and that there's no doubt in your mind what the results of said election are and have been. Or not. So, this is a little bit of a departure from what I would normally want to talk about on this channel because I really want to focus on giving you guys information, something kind of like one to grow on. Remember, we used to say that? Giving you one to grow on, information to help you think deeply about how your faith and your political activity should intertwine. But this, I cannot pass up for much longer. I want to start with something that is really important for me to say right up front. There's a quote by Ulysses S. Grant, who was obviously the general of the Union Army during the Civil War. He said, during that time, he said, there are two parties. There's traitors and there are patriots. And the quote is famous because at that time, at that critical time in the nation's history, it wasn't about parties. It was about right and wrong. It's about who's with the country and who's not. And in his mind, the Confederates were traitors and the Unions were patriots because they wanted to do what was right by the country. Now, here's the interesting thing. I have never been comfortable calling myself a Republican, even though almost, as far as I can recall, I don't know that I've ever voted for a Democrat. But what I will say is that the reason why I've never been comfortable calling myself a Republican is that I believe in principles, not parties. I believe in ideas. And conservative ideas are what I adhere to. So if at any point Republicans start to pull away or start to depart from the ideas of conservatism that I hold dear, then I'll just pull away from conservatives. Or excuse me, then I'll pull away from Republicans, I should say. Because it really is about the ideas, it's about the principles, it's not about the party. So, what I've noticed about this whole election thing is that there are many Republicans, and I got to tell you, I can't tell who the patriots are and who the traitors are. I have no idea. There's a healthy mix of both in both parties. And the reason why I know that is because while the media continue to say, and I'll get to this in a moment, they continue to say like a mantra, like they're trying to like they're telling you, don't believe your lying eyes. Donald Trump and his team keep claiming without evidence that there's voter fraud. They keep claiming without evidence that there's voter fraud. And we're going to look at the most blatant and obvious example that's obviously a lie. But the disappointing thing is that there are many Republicans who, to me, they are more concerned with how they'll look on the other end of this whole fiasco and whether or not they'll be seen as people who held out and supported Donald Trump. And they're kind of basically trying to position themselves to be in a good position to land softly if and when Donald Trump's claims tend to not pan out. And I, for one, am not about party and I'm not about any of that stuff. I'm just about the truth. It's really not about Donald Trump. There are many people who say it's time to, like we did in 2016, there are many people who voted Democrat. It's time for you to do what we did in 2016. Just move on and accept the terms of the election. Listen, friends. The mother of all deceit is conflation, right? You cannot conflate what happened in 2016 with what's happening now. I accepted the 2008 election to 2012 election. I did not vote for Barack Obama. Not for one split second was I ever a Barack Obama supporter. Not for 1 second. And not for 1 second when the election results were announced did I ever say that Barack Obama was not my president. Not for 1 second. I have never criticized Barack Obama for anything personally. It has always been about the policies, and I never had a problem accepting his presidency because there was no question in my mind that he won fair and square. And if you're saying that this election is the same, then you are not paying attention. I might very well be, if these allegations and the stuff that I'm about to show you, if this thing is not thoroughly investigated, I'm about to be, for the next 4 years, probably on my Joe Biden is not my president bandwagon, right? And I might say it a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but kind of serious. It's not that I'm not going to acknowledge him or dishonor him and say that he's not the president, but in my mind, he will not be a legitimate president. And I think for a lot of people, that's the case. Well, you say, well, why do you say that, Todd? Why is that the case? Before I get to the evidence, I just want to build this up. Many of you don't really care whether or not the results were fraudulent. And this is, of course, the topic of the video. You don't really care whether or not Donald Trump was elected fairly. And here's why. The mainstream media has done such a thorough job of relentlessly painting Donald Trump as the worst person ever, that for you, whether or not he was fairly ousted or he was fraudulently ousted is not of any concern to you, because if he's really that bad, if he's as bad as they say he is, the only thing that matters is that we get him out. You might say, well, you haven't really thought about it in those terms, not explicitly, but I can give you an idea of the way we tend to think about these things, and by making an interesting comparison. Many of you, maybe you know about Schindler's List. Maybe you've seen that movie. The Schindler's List movie was based on true historical events. And basically, in a nutshell, Schindler was a German businessman, and he ended up lying to the Nazi government. But he did so to protect tens of thousands. I don't really know how many people. I can't recall. I've seen the movie, but I can't recall how many people he ended up saving. But it was on the order of many thousands of people, even if it was hundreds, even if it was tens of people. What Schindler did was commended. Why? Because he was deceiving the Nazi Germany government, but they were evil. They were trying to kill people for no reason, for no other reason, except for the fact that they were Jews. And so this wicked regime needed to be ousted. They needed to be thrown off. They needed to be thwarted, and almost really by an any means necessary fashion. Now, how does that relate to Donald Trump? The truth is that literally, and this is not hyperbole, there have been people in the mainstream media comparing Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler as if that were some legitimate comparison. There are people who hate Donald Trump so much that it doesn't really matter how he gets beat, so long as we beat him, they say. I know I have firsthand knowledge of this, one, because my wife, who actually shared the most recent information in fraud, where people keep saying, oh, it's the most secure election ever in the history of the United States, like parroting that talk, which is completely nonsense. But they would say something like that, and then my wife posts this piece of evidence that I'm going to share with you today, and they go, well, it don't really matter if we cheated because he cheated last time. Why does this person believe that Donald Trump cheated last time? Because that's what the media have been saying for 4 years. Have they produced any evidence that he cheated? Not even close to any evidence that he cheated. Not even close. But what I'm about to show you today is as close to a smoking gun as you can get. You may think he cheated. that is the Democrat Party, you may think that there's been some election fraud. You may not think there's any election fraud. But for most of you, many of you listen to this right now, you don't really care because you kind of think Donald Trump had it coming. You kind of think he deserved it. And this is the problem when you have a media completely dedicated to smearing and destroying a person's reputation. Then there's nothing that you won't justify to get rid of that person. Everything you've been watching for the last 4 years says Donald Trump is the most evil person ever to inhabit the office of the president. And what do they present as their primary thing that they've harped on for the last 4 years? Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump is evil. But here's an interesting thing that you need to recognize. 74 million Americans voted for Donald Trump. Outside of Joe Biden's supposed totals for this year, that's the highest number of votes any presidential candidate has ever gotten in the history of the United States. Donald Trump increased his vote total from the previous election by 17%. Donald Trump increased all of his vote totals and general share of the vote from all minority groups, from Latinos, from blacks. He got more Latino and black votes than he did in 2016. So I'm sitting here editing this video, and I thought that I would interject a couple things that might also, I think, tell a story about how unlikely this supposed Joe Biden victory is. Not only did Donald Trump get 74 million votes, the highest vote total of anyone besides, I guess, Joe Biden in this election, if his votes are legitimate. But 74 million votes is 11 million more votes than he got the first time. And he increased his vote total over the last time. For contrast, Barack Obama got 69 million votes around thereabouts, and he got 65 million votes the second time around, and he still won fairly comfortably over Mitt Romney. You think about how popular Barack Obama was. But when you look at all of these swing states, right, it was only the swing states that had issues with counting, only the swing states where they stopped counting in the middle of the night, and then miraculously they had this recovery. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton both outperformed Joe Biden basically everywhere, except in those swing states, in particular in the places where they stopped counting in the middle of the night. So when you add all of those things up, those are just too many coincidences. And I think any reasonable person should have some level of suspicion, if you're honest, about those results. So I just wanted to interject that. But this entire time they've been telling you that that's his main character flaw. That's the main evil that he has presented, that he is a racist, evil president. But now all of a sudden, when they tell you that Donald Trump says, without evidence, that there was fraud, that you should believe that? Well, what about this evidence?
Of the votes, Mark?
Nora, this is an election return watch party here on the edge of Atlanta. These are mostly excited Democrats because when's the last time Georgia thought of itself as a battleground state? After record early returns and essentially a day of problem-free voting, there is now a hitch in the tabulation of votes. I'm standing in Fulton County. Fulton County includes a chunk of Atlanta. Downtown Atlanta is State Farm Arena where the Atlanta Hawks play. They are tabulating the absentee ballots of Fulton County, Georgia's most populous county. A water pipe has broken inside the arena. They had counted 86,000 absentee ballots. We don't know how many more they have yet to tabulate, but all the tabulation of those ballots has now stopped. We're told by election officials they may not finish tabulating those votes for a day or two. So depending how close the rest of the state is, we may not know the result of this critical battleground state.
So I need to frame this for you so you understand. They said that they had to stop counting the votes because a water pipe broke. And this is what they announced on the night of the election. This is what we got from the news. Now, this is the surveillance video of them counting the ballots in the very place where they said that they had stopped counting the ballots on that very night.
Yeah, I saw 4 suitcases come out from underneath the table.
Supporters of the president are calling it Suitcase Gate.
We call it a suitcase.
But those are not suitcases. 11 Alive has confirmed they're the standard ballot containers used by Fulton County.
The video shows is that they have pulled out plastic bins from underneath the desks. Those are bins that they keep under their desks near the scanners.
They've investigated this repeatedly, that they had a monitor on site the entire time. And frankly, this has been debunked for weeks by our Secretary of State's office.
I doubt he's
What
seen the video.
evidence?
Your officials need to watch the video.
They did. The video is not new. State investigators reviewed the State Farm surveillance tapes weeks ago. Gabriel Sterling with the Secretary of State's office tweeted the 90-second video of election workers purporting to show fraud was watched in its entirety by Georgia Secretary of State investigators, shows normal ballot processing.
That the press reported there was, like, I suppose, water break or water main break or pipe break or whatever, and that this was an excuse for people clearing out of State Farm Arena.
The water pipe leak and the events on the surveillance video did not happen on the same night. Those two events occurred 17 hours apart. How do we know? We were there.
Early this morning, we told there was a water main break above the room I'm standing in here at State Farm Arena.
That live report was hours before the surveillance video of the room clearing. The workers leading were those who opened the ballot envelopes, and once they were done processing that batch, they went home.
At about 10 o'clock, there was one person working the polls who told everyone in the room to leave.
They began letting certain people go. No announcement was ever made to leave, for anyone to leave.
Was anyone actually told to leave, or just that they were done counting? Republican monitors claim they were forced out.
They were made to leave, so it was done in contradiction of the statute.
Both 11 Alive journalists on site that night independently confirmed to me that they were not told to leave, but they were told counting was done for the night.
Fulton County, they were telling us that their absentee ballot vote counting, their workers went home from that this evening. They'll be back around 8:30 in the morning.
And why are they only counting them whenever the place is cleared out with no witnesses?
This part is true. The press and the party monitors were not given notice that counting would continue into the early morning hours, and they should have been. The Secretary of State says one of its monitors was present. The counting of those heavily Democratic absentee ballots did result in a big batch of numbers coming in from Fulton County in the 1 a.m. hour on election night.
And Brendan, we just got.
So let's just try to think about what we just watched. They spent the whole video telling you that there was nothing wrong with the way that those votes were counted. They spent the whole time trying to get you to believe that the water main break story, which we already watched, which they tried to make seem on the night of the election like it had just happened. Here he goes, oh yeah, we already knew about that because we were there. Nothing to see here. They just spent 5 minutes trying to tell you that there was nothing wrong. And then at the end of the video, they admit that they told the people they would stop counting, and then they did after they left. I'm sorry, but if you buy that, if you buy that this is on the up and up and that there was nothing shady going on, I've got a bridge I'd like to sell you. There is no way you can be that naive. Let's really understand what's going on here. For people who don't follow it and who don't understand it, please just understand what's happening. Doing universal mail-in ballots could only have resulted in 2 results. 1, it would increase the number of people, inevitably, who would participate in voting during the election. And 2, it would make it significantly more difficult to determine which ballots were legal and which were not legal. But I want you to see how you were gaslighted. They spent the whole time in this video saying there's nothing to be, there's nothing to be wary of, even though the primary claim and the primary concern of those who are concerned about fraud, even though it exists, even though that those claims are legitimate, you still don't need to worry about it because, that just trust us, right? The same people who were telling you for 4 years that Donald Trump's an evil, racist monster, while at the same time he increased his share of the black vote. The bottom line is this, friends. This is about what's right. This is not 2016. This is not Hillary unexpectedly losing because the polls were wrong. This is the largest share of U.S. votes by any other candidate in prior years' history, losing an election despite increasing their own vote total from the last election by almost 20 points. Let's say 18. But friends, if you care about truth and justice, you'll follow these hearings. I encourage you to go and look at the evidence. The media is going to tell you at every turn. That's Fox News, that's CNN, that's MSNBC, that's all of them. And that's why I quoted that quote from Ulysses S. Grant. There's no political parties right now. There are people who care about the truth and people who don't. That's all there is. And if you care about the truth, if you want to understand what's going on, I want to encourage you to watch these hearings. Look at the evidence yourself. Follow the story, because there is something to it. Just like we just saw, even when there is a legitimate claim, they are still going to try to gaslight you and try to make you think that you aren't seeing what you thought you saw. They made up a story, whole cloth, about the pipe bursting. Of course, it really happened. The pipe did burst. The water main did break, but it had nothing to do with why they stopped counting. Then they told people that after they would stop counting, after the people went home, then they started counting again. And if you don't think that that's fishy, then I don't know what to say to you, friend. I would say that that means you're not interested in the truth, because that's obviously something not right going on. Anyway, I've talked longer than I should on this video. Again, a little bit of a departure, but I feel like I should address this. Just so you know, the election's not over. And part of the reason why I wanted to do this is that if and when there is an overturn of these results, don't be shocked and pray for our nation, because there will be blood in the streets. I just wanted you to hear it here first, that just because you're not seeing it on the news doesn't mean that it's not happening. Till next time, friends, God bless you.